Jay Lopez's head was down too. He was checking his cell phone for text messages. And even Izzy Zanella was uncharacteristically mute, seemingly fascinated by the headlights of the passing traffic. Tony broke the silence, clearing his throat. "So," he said, and it was weird because his heart wasn't pounding. In fact, he was almost unnaturally calm. It was twice as weird because after years of trying to second-guess the exact right time and place to come out to his teammates, he hadn't hesitated tonight. He'd just done it, following Adam down the street like a 13-year-old with a crush, while some of his closest friends in Team 16 watched. And whatever the fallout was going to be, truth was, he didn't particularly give a shit. And wasn't that bizarre, since he'd literally sweated over the idea of being forcibly discharged from this job that he loved. He cleared his throat again. "That probably cleared up a few mysteries for you, huh, guys?" Zanella was the first to look up, but the taller man didn't hold Tony's gaze for more than a few seconds. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "I didn't see a thing." "Me neither," Jay said, shutting his phone. "I didn't see a fucking thing." He turned abruptly, heading back toward the house, and it was crazy. Tony could count on his fingers the times he'd heard Jay drop the F-bomb. Usually it only happened when a serious firefight was going on. It was twice as crazy because Gilman and Silverman were stunned too, looking after Jay as he opened the gate, as if his use of profanity was more shocking to them than the news that Tony was gay. Probably gay. They were playing this as if they didn't know for sure, despite the fact that they'd just watched him hit on Adam freaking Wyndham, one of Hollywood's hottest rising, openly gay movie stars. But it was clear that they were going to follow the rules and not ask. Jay, in particular, was choosing to walk away rather than stay and discuss, and that was disappointing, since, out of all of them, he was the one Tony had most expected to be accepting. Apparently, Tony had misjudged the extent of the older SEAL's Catholicism. Apparently, he was one of those so-called Christians who sang about all God's children, but then pointed exclusionary fingers. "Not so fast there, you and you and you." But then Jay stopped and turned back and pointed a very literal finger at Tony. "You." He started, but then stopped himself, even as Tony braced for the name-calling and ugliness that he just knew was coming from this man that he so admired. He tried to hide his disappointment by mentally moving on. He could put in for a transfer, head for the East Coast teams, although it was likely that news of his sexual orientation would precede him, which could well mean that his days in the Navy were numbered. But that was inevitable. He'd known that from the moment he'd enlisted. He tried to focus on the fact that Sam Sterrett had made it more than clear that he had a place waiting for Tony in the private sector, as part of Troubleshooters Incorporated's elite personal security team. And since Sam's best friend was gay, what, or who, Tony did wasn't likely to be a problem for his potential new employer. And even if Tony didn't have TS Inc. as a backup plan, he still wouldn't give a shit that his military career was about to come crashing down around his ears. It was less easy, though, to not care about which gay slur Jay Lopez was about to use. Except it didn't come. "You should have trusted me, man," Jay said instead of calling him a faggot, before shaking his head in disgust and stomping up the steps to the house. Gilman and Silverman followed Jay inside, leaving Izzy Zanella to stand watch with Tony in the frigid night. "Shoulda, woulda, coulda," Zanella said as he tucked his scarf more securely around his neck, as his breath hung in the air. "Easy for him to say, TV. Give him a little time and he'll figure out how much it must really suck to be you." "But it doesn't suck to be me. I'm Tony," he'd told